Can everyone hear me all right? My live feed is on. Yeah, I had to warn people that it was a live mic. I think I should have a little sign, live mic. So I'm told my live feed is on, the technology people is. You know, I'm always kind of perplexed. Here we are at one of the premier technology universities in the world, and our technology with all this stuff tends not to work a whole lot. It's frustrating. So I think really what we need is engineers here at Purdue that'll make this stuff more reliable. Because I don't think it's us, I think it's the stuff. So there you go. I've been consulting with nonprofits, doing leadership and governance training and strategic planning for almost 20 years. I've been involved in nonprofits on boards and as volunteers and as staff members for over 30 years. I remember that because my daughter's going to turn 30 soon, so I gauge it by that. When I first started consulting, I wanted to go into nonprofits and I wanted to say, this is what you should be doing. Here's how you make your organization work. And the boards I sat on, the ones I worked for, I wanted to say, these are the things we should be doing. And it didn't happen. There are best practices, things that people will tell you for leadership, for governance, for fundraising, for strategic planning, that you should be doing. If you do these things, you'll be successful, but we don't do them. Why? Because we function in the real world. We don't function in the place that is best, where best practices all work and everyone cooperates and understands. So today I'm coming here, and the way I now work with nonprofits, the way I work with student organizations, is to give you some ideas. I'm not going to train you to do anything. I'm going to give you ideas and concepts and ask you to consider which ones you can take back to your club, to your situation, and make work. I have not yet transformed a board that I've sat on or I've consulted with into a board that functions as Board Source and all the experts tell us it should. The most success is helping a board, a group, an organization to implement some things that will make them function better and that they can actually implement and carry through. What you need to do if you want to make changes in your organization, your leadership, is not to adopt specific practices, but to have a concept of what kind of culture your organization needs. So it needs cultural change. And when I'm talking with the leadership concepts I'm going to present today are more about cultural changes within your leadership practices, within your organizations, than they are about do this, do this, do this, do this. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. What are some of your experiences with leadership in your organizations? Pardon me? Slow to change. What else?
Low commitment.
Pardon me?
Low commitment.
Low commitment. What else? Yes.
Declining membership, declining commitment, declining volunteers.
Declining membership, commitment, and volunteers. What else?
Once they're in, they never leave.
Once they're in, they never leave. Yeah. Yes.
There's a flip side of that, though. Once you're in, they never want you to leave.
Once you're in, they'll never want you to leave. Yeah.
Others to step up.
Need others to step up.
Passion.
Pardon me?
Passion. Loyalty.
Passion, loyalty. Your challenges are no different than most nonprofits I work with. Your challenges are no different than the 900 student organizations that exist on this campus. It's really, really, really hard to run, to manage, to lead, to have a successful volunteer organization. Even ones with staffs struggle. But ones without staffs that everything's volunteer, well, that's really a challenge. My experience. I've started volunteering when I was a student at St. Patrick's Elementary School in Owego, New York. And I remember that first volunteering thing where I sold raffle tickets for a huge chocolate bunny. My first other volunteer opportunity came in the spring when I was in elementary school. I was probably in 4th grade. Sister Vincentia came up to me and said, "Harry, after school is out, I want you to stop by Mrs. So-and-so's house on Front Street on your way home." Being an intelligent young man, I said, "Oh, sister, I can't do that. My mother expects me home." My mother worked and she wasn't home. My grandmother was there, though. And Sister Vincent, she said, "I already talked to your mother." She said, "It's okay." So I volunteered. I did garden work for this really nice old lady. And after I finished doing garden work, cleaning out her garden beds and like that and all of that, I kept going back all summer because she was really nice. And so that was my first taste of being rewarded for volunteering. She was nice to me. She sat and talked to me. She gave me lemonade. She told me what a nice boy I was. And it was fun. I got something out of it. That's key. People volunteer because they want something from you. The question is, what are you willing and able to give them? That's for the next 45 minutes. So, I've worked in nonprofit leadership with Lafayette Urban Ministry, with humane societies, the Volunteer Bureau, and here on campus. And I've learned a lot about what it takes to lead volunteers. My experience is, again, 30 years direct leadership, 16 plus years here at Purdue working with student organizations and governance, or 10 years working here at Purdue. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from not just what I've been trained in and learned and certified, but I'm coming to you from my experience out in the world. So, how do you lead your clubs? What does it look like? What's your structure? And this is the point at which I tell you that on Myers-Briggs, how many people are familiar with Myers-Briggs? Myers-Briggs, I score as absolutely high as possible on introversion. I'm not joking, I am. You cannot score higher on Myers-Briggs in introversion than I do, which means I'm really comfortable with silence. So, how do you run your clubs? What does it look like? What does your leadership structure look like?
Board does everything.
The board does everything. Who on the board does everything?
I don't know. I'm looking down. It's for guidance. We think it's a few people. The president.
Two or three people.
Yeah.
2 or 3 people. Most nonprofit organizations that I've experienced, including student organizations, kind of approach leadership in a traditional fashion. They're task accomplishment oriented. In other words, you have some jobs that need to get done, you have some events that need to happen, and you focus on the tasks that are going to accomplish those jobs. That's what you focus on. You have well-defined structures and well-defined roles. You have a president. How many people have president? How many people have a secretary? How many people have a treasurer? How many people have committee chairs? How many people have someone who's in charge of a special event? Well-defined roles. And you have well-defined leadership and authority positions. Who has authority in your organization? The board, the president, the treasurer. There's an emphasis on oversight. Oversight, making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and doing it the way they're supposed to do it, right? Got to have control. And who exercises that control? Probably the board or the president. And if you're like any organization I've been on the board of, when it comes time to find new board members or find new committee members, you go, we have this position, this interest level we need to fill. Who's going to be president next year? Who's going to be secretary? Who's going to be treasurer? We need a lawyer on our board. And so we go out and we find people who, you know, have a finance background, work for a bank. Most recent board I was on, the person who runs the Treasury Department here at Purdue, well, we recruit those person. Why? Because they do that for a living and we want them to come and do it for us for free. I spent much of my life going on boards and being told, oh, well, you can be head of the volunteer committee. Oh, you can do governance. I do those things for a living. Yes, I have expertise, but it doesn't mean I want to come and spend all day at work doing those things, then come and spend my volunteer time doing those things. So we tend to recruit people, individuals, to fill specific roles. So what I want to suggest is another model that I think is more adapted to the realities of a volunteer organization, and that's creative or shared leadership. This is what we teach students now. That leadership is a social process. That real leadership comes from relationships, not roles, not positions, but from relationships we build with other people in our organization we interact with. And it's about accomplishing collective and individual goals. Collective goals mean that the people who are in the leadership relationships all understand and support those goals. They're not simply just handed down. I've been to a lot of organizations where programming is this way, it was that way this year, and the year before that, and 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 before that. And when you suggest changing it, they go, oh, but we've done it that way forever. But I don't care. I want to do something different. I want to have other goals. That leadership comes out of the requirement for collective action. I've been on too many boards where collective action is a few people at the top who have been there forever say, this is what needs to happen, go do it. And I'll tell you, me and many of the people who are younger generation graduating from college that you want in your clubs, that's not what they want. They want collective action, which means they have some stake in what's happening, not just being told what to do. And shared leadership and distributed authority. You allow people to exercise leadership and authority wherever they are in the organization. It changes your concept of oversight. It's not a matter of control, but it's a matter of allowing people to make decisions, trusting them to make decisions, and understanding that the parameters they're making decisions there is not some book you hand them and says, this is how this happens, or some oversight, this is how you should be doing this. But the parameters are up there at the collect goals. And leadership is about developing people so they can lead, so they can make those decisions. So they do understand the expectations of the organization. So you empower people to be leaders. And what that does, it addresses this question of passion. It addresses the question of commitment. If I have some investment in what the organization is doing, I'm going to be more committed to it rather than I've just been asked to come in and sit on this committee that's going to do the same thing they did last year, and I have a task of calling somebody. If I have the opportunity, and I apologize, if I have the opportunity to make decisions and to exercise leadership, I have an investment in something. And that goes up there to the individual goals. Your organizations exist to accomplish some collective goals. Promote Purdue, bring people together, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. What are they? But they're also, people come to you for individual goals. You've got to figure out why they're there. And very busy people aren't going to come to you just because you need something done. They want to be involved. They want to have their time be meaningful. And oftentimes in volunteer organizations, we don't make that time meaningful. I've been on too many boards. I've been a volunteer too many places where I don't think my time has been well used. I just left a board after 6 years. My first year there, we talked about we're going to do a volunteer manual that would list every single volunteer job, what you were supposed to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I put a lot of work into that. But then there was always something else that had to be done, and it was never done. It's now 7 years, and that's not done. Does that make me feel good about my time I spent there? No. It's also the same board that I wanted to be on a certain committee, and after 2 years as president and 1 year as other president and doing all this other stuff like finance committee and fundraising committee, things that are not fun, I wanted to be on a fun committee. I was never put there because, well, you're needed over here. That organization did not meet my individual goals, did not meet my individual needs. That's something that when you develop a leadership culture, you have to understand. Any questions or comments on this? What are you thinking? And you can also tell me, oh, I think you're nuts. I don't care. You're smiling. You think I'm nuts?
No.
Oh, darn, I thought I was ready for a fight. Go ahead. Yes.
I think it's interesting
though, because in a revolving leadership, right, we're only in these roles for 2 years, sometimes for the president. So yeah, it lends itself to here's your book, here's how you do the
Right.
president. Whereas there isn't a formal training program and there's not a lot of continuity. Most of us don't even get 6 years there, right? So I think that culture shift.
That is, your training is constant. That developing leadership and developing the leadership that's going to replace you becomes a priority of the organization. So yeah, when you have a situation where you are task accomplish oriented, you need the damn book. I'm sorry if the word insulted anyone. But if you're in an organization that is constantly developing, allowing people to develop leadership, to function as a leader, no matter where they are, if you're an organization who is coming to understand why are we here? And do we all agree on what this club needs to do and be? Within the parameters that Purdue sets, of course, your alumni clubs. You're not going to have, let's all pretend we're from IU Day. But when you develop this culture, you are developing leaders, and you avoid that. Here's the book, because people are already socialized in. Yes?
I was going to say, we've tried very hard to develop leadership
Mhm.
and to invite younger people and get them all ready and, know what's going on and what we'd like to do. And then the company they belong to transfers them to another place.
That's and there you have no answer to that.
No, and that's kind of discouraging.
It is. And so that's why I say you have to look at what your club is and do the things you can do. Your club might not ever be able to reach this shared leadership model completely. And I'm not suggesting every club has to. What works for you? How do you improve where you are in your situation? What ideas can you take? So maybe what you do is just improve how your club works and how you bring people into your club just by doing more discussion about why are you here? Why are we here? What should we do? We've been doing all this stuff forever. What else can we do? You know, I listened to what the people are saying before me and about volunteers. So national surveys of who volunteers and who doesn't volunteer tell us that the most likely group of people to be involved in volunteer activities are who? Pardon me?
Older people. Busy people.
The least likely are people 18 and under. The second least likely are people who are retired. And the most likely are young families with children at home. The very people we say, well, they're too busy. The question is, what are they involved in? They're volunteering for sports. They're volunteering for things that revolve around their children. How do you use that information to get young families involved in your clubs? Bring cookies for the kids, or do things that focus specifically on the kids. Babysitters. Right. So the question is, but the problem is, it's not that people don't have time. They need someone to babysit for their kids so they can go do stuff. They want to do things for their kids. Why are we here and what are individual goals? How do we get people involved in leadership? We need to understand that whomever you want in your club, whoever are the ones who are going to make your club viable and long-term, who are they? You know, look at the demographic material that they posted. Who are those people that are here that are Purdue alumni, and what are their needs? How do we meet their needs to bring them into leadership or just to come out and participate? And there's a question over here.
Do you think it's effective to ask the people on your board, why are they here?
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay, because I always wonder, should I ask them?
How is you going to find out?
Yes.
How is you going to find out? Yes, you always ask people why you're there. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but you always tell people why you want them there. I want you involved in the leadership of my organization because. And tell them specifically why they're the right person. How many people have ever been asked to join something? Oh, we really want you on our board. And you go, oh, okay. Well, you're a good supporter. You believe in, the organization. We want you on our board. Have you ever asked why? Maybe you're the fifth person they asked. What will I bring to your organization that is going to make it better? And then ask that question, why do you want to be here? What can we give you? What can we do for you? Because leadership in volunteer organizations, volunteering in volunteer organizations is reciprocal. It's an exchange. I don't want to be president of a local arts organization because it's going to make me prestigious. No! Maybe if I'm president of a Purdue Alumni Club, that would make me prestigious. It's a lot of work just to be prestigious, right? Any other comments on this? Yeah.
Where does a mission statement come into this, or does it even come into it?
What's a mission statement today? I mean, I work with a lot of nonprofits. I do a lot of strategic planning. And we spend a lot of time writing mission statements. And then no one knows what they are. And some of them are really, really great. We're going to be the best. We're going to be the most whatever. Your mission statement should be, what are we going to do for the people we want to serve? Who are those people? So who do you serve? We serve Purdue alumni. We serve Purdue alumni and their families. We serve Purdue alumni, their families, and friends of Purdue. Who do you serve? That's what a mission statement should tell you. And what do you do for them? How are we going to serve you? That's what a mission statement should be. Not some glorious, wonderful statement that we strive to be the greatest alumni club on the face of the earth, blah, 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 blah. It's about who I'm going to serve and how I'm going to do that. And it should be revised as who you serve changes and what they need and want changes. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay. Anything else? Yes.
So you're talking about culture and what it's like to create a culture and investing in potential new leaders. When you've had a complete change in leadership, a new board with a bunch of new people, could you talk about what the process is like and as far as time to create that kind of culture with new people?
It's a challenge, yeah.
Can you repeat that?
Okay, so she's asking about turnover. And when you have, and make sure I'm saying this right, complete turnover in your leadership, how do you create a culture where you're continually developing leaders? I'd ask the question, why do you have turnover?
The previous leadership was on for a very long time. They were very dedicated, but it's time to make a change.
Okay, so it's not because you live in a nomadic environment where people are, packing up tents and moving away.
Actually, to add on that, it's that the people step down but are still involved sometimes too.
Okay. Well, you're in luck because now you have an opportunity with new leadership to develop a new leadership culture. One of the greatest barriers to developing new cultures within any organization is the fact that there are a lot of people around who say, oh, well, we've never done it that way before. So you have the opportunity now to change that culture. You have an opportunity to recruit people specifically saying, this is how we want this organization to work. Yes, I'm president, and we'll talk about what top leadership does in a minute. Hopefully, I'm not running out of time.
We have until 11, so
Okay.
between the two presentations, we have until 11.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll just blend the two because I misread my instructions, and I thought I had an hour and a half for both presentations. But then when I found out yesterday at, what time was it, about 4 o'clock, that I had 45 minutes for each presentation, I'm going, huh. So anyway, I can blend the two. My fault, because I don't pay attention. It's always important to understand what your faults and your strengths are. I am disorganized, I am scattered, I daydream, I'm extremely introverted, but you know something? I have great ideas. So what you can do is you can say, this is how we want it to work. We want people recruited specifically with the understanding, I'm going to ask you to be president, or I'm going to ask you to be secretary, I'm going to ask you to involve, but I'm going to ask you to do it in this way. It's our culture. The opposite problem is if you have great turnover, like people just stay, like someone said, you're only in the position for 2 years and out, 2 years and out. It's harder to get the culture established, but you do it piecemeal. Again, if you try to make major changes in how your organization functions, you'll fail. It's sort of like okay, so I decided I had to get healthier. Being an extremely old man, I decided I needed that. So rather than try to eliminate everything from my diet that was making me pudgy, I decided, okay, well, I just won't do sugar anymore. And once I got that no sugar down, I moved on to something else. Because bread is sugar. So I got rid of bread. So I don't eat bread and I don't eat sugar. And then I eliminated mammals from my diet. I don't eat cows, and pigs are so cute, and I can't eat pigs. So I do eat chickens and turkeys, because they're not nearly as cute. And I do eat fish, because they're fish. And eventually I'm going to remove chickens and turkeys from my diet and just eat fish. I do it piecemeal. I want to get to be a vegetarian again. I used to be a vegetarian. I was healthier and I was happier. I want to get there, but I know that I'm not going to be successful if I just say, whoop, I'm a vegetarian today, because that's not what I am. I got to become that. The same way with your clubs. You're not a shared leadership, creative leadership, network leadership organization, and you're not going to become one tomorrow just by saying, we're going to do that. It's hard. Some of those things that you've been doing forever that are traditional leadership are jelly donuts. And my goodness, they look good, especially when you're stressed and you've got to get something done. But I'll tell you something, after 5 years of not eating jelly donuts or anything, they're disgusting. I have no desire for them. I see people eating them, I'm going, ooh, how can you eat that? So it works. So let's look at some of these ideas a little bit more in depth. So leadership is a social process. And we go back to this question, why do people get involved in your club? I'm in the introversion type things for silence. Why do people get involved in your clubs?
Networking.
Networking. Who do they network with?
Other alumni.
Why else do they get involved in your club? Because you ask them to. There you go. Why else? To have fun. Why else? To get a better job. Why else?
School pride.
School pride. Why else?
Training,
Training. What kind of training?
try to learn something new.
Okay. Why else? To give back. Why else? Pardon me? Like-minded people. Why else?
Loyalty to Purdue.
Loyalty to Purdue. So what are the benefits they get from involvement? To meet people, to network. What else? Hanging out with Purdue people. What else? Fun. What else? Socialization. What else?
Family member gets a scholarship.
Family members get a scholarship. If you notice, how many people said they get involved with our group because they want to run a project, they want to sit on a committee, they want to do this work, they want to be secretary, they want to be treasurer, they want to be president? No, you talked about social interactions, social exchanges. I think that's significant. What are the benefits of leadership in your club?
Personal growth. Yeah.
Personal growth,
New skills.
new skills,
Meeting other leaders.
meeting other leaders,
Transference of skills to their workplace.
transference of skills to workplace.
You get a gold P.
To get a gold P. Are they really gold? Or are they just colored gold?
The spirit of it.
Okay. At least they don't, have like the boiler statue guy, a big brooch. That would be good. What are the collective needs your club meets? Why? And this is the question. This goes back to mission. So what of your club? What are the needs out there that you are meeting, and who are you meeting them for? Scholarships. Okay, so tell me, who is that need, whose need is being met? Future Boilermakers. But you're an alumni club, not Future Boilermakers Club. In theory. It's the investment, okay. What other needs do you meet? A sense of belonging for who?
For the community.
What community? The Purdue community in a particular place. And friends. Okay, so what other need do you, well, who needs that?
Everyone.
So every Purdue student, alumni, every Purdue alumni in your area belongs to your club? No. Okay, I guess everyone doesn't need it.
Do transition and get more Purdue alumni members,
Okay,
so we serve the Purdue Alumni Association.
okay. And I'm using humor to get a point across, okay? So I'm not trashing your club. Where is your club?
Northern suburbs of Chicago.
Okay. Is that Wisconsin? Or is almost? I just wonder. So what else does your club do? Yeah. What needs do they meet?
The community,
What community?
the greater community, like we give to food banks and we clean up the river and stuff like that.
Okay. What else?
Recently, we're trying to take Purdue traditions and bring them to our club, like Breakfast Club, and before a game.
I did not hear that. Not at all. Breakfast Club is not a Purdue tradition. Breakfast Club is a West Lafayette tradition. I have to say that because I'm in student life.
But to bring Purdue traditions, so one thing, they have indoor go-kart racing, so we're going to do a Milwaukee Purdue Club Grand Prix.
Okay.
With that, so we're trying to bring Purdue traditions as a student to the alumni club.
Why do people need that? And I ask that question because when I ask nonprofits, what needs do you serve, they tell me activities. They don't tell me needs that they are addressing. Why do people need your club? What need is lacking? And you don't have to answer that. I want you to think about that. Because that goes to the very question of why people want to become involved with you. Yes, Purdue alumni want to hang out with other Purdue alumni and watch Purdue football. Okay, maybe that's a bad example. But is that a need? Would people miss you when you're gone? As we said before, there are too many things that I can do on a Saturday or a Friday or a Thursday or whatever day of the week. Too many things that are competing with you. What is compelling about what you do? I can go to a nonprofit in this town and I can say, what need do you fill? I go, well, we feed people. Yeah? Well, the diners feed people. So what need do you fill? We provide food for people who need it. Everybody needs food. So what need do you fill? We provide backpacks full of food on Fridays so children can take them home to their families because otherwise they would probably not have meals during the weekend when there's no school lunch or school breakfast. That's a need. So you as a club, what need do you fill? And there are all those wonderful things like association and hanging out and having fun and networking and skills. But frankly, you got to do more than that because there's all sorts of places that do that. The Lions Club, Rotary, the Odd Fellows.
They're having their own problems getting members.
Absolutely, because what need do they fill? A lot of these volunteer organizations that have social basis are having trouble struggling answering that question. Harvard clubs have big buildings in cities where you can go and have drinks and hang out in leather chairs. And where they need Yale to partner with them, which they do partner with Yale, although the rivalry is probably more intense than Purdue and IU, they have Harvard-Yale clubs. So what needs do they serve? Well, you can come, you can network, etc. You can get a good meal, and you can drink, and you can sit in clubs, and you can tell your people from Purdue, I'm sorry, you can't come in because I'm exclusive. But so what need do you have?
Well, I was just going to say the smartphones and the Facebooks are filling a need that we're not filling.
They are. They are. But do you want to fill the Facebook need?
No.
One thing I was going to say when we were talking about, someone said emails. Students don't